Hey, Sir Cho Hag, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you and Kelbo were friends for a very long time, and Shalazar had some questions for you about that long friendship.
Hey, Sir Cho Hag, welcome to the podcast, man. It is an honor to have you on today. I do
Thank you,
appreciate you
sir.
coming on and hanging out with us for a moment.
Yeah.
So,
Anytime.
so yeah, I mean, so just for our listeners to understand, you actually knew him when you guys were in school. So, as one of Kelbo's oldest friends, uh, tell us how you guys actually met and how you guys joined Amtgard together.
Well, let's see. We're talking 92, no, 91 we met. 10th grade in high school. Actually, we met, but weren't really friends when we first met. His parents lived about 4 houses down from mine, so we went to the same bus stop. He was always the kid that kind of sat on the opposite corner from the crowd of people waiting at the bus, and nobody ever reached out to him. This probably went on for a few months, and me and Tony shared a class. It was a world history class, and we sat actually right next to each other, and he actually not right next to us, but right behind me, and people were pairing up for some sort of history report. Neither one of us were chosen by any of the popular people, so I just turned around to Tony and I was like, well, you want to team up? And he just kind of looks at me, he's like, sure, why not? And had we known at that moment in time that our great friendship was born, I think we probably would have tried to meet a lot sooner. We got off that bus that day, and I went to hang out over his house. And I tell you what, we just had so much in common. It was hard to keep us apart. We were finishing each other's sentences. I mean, it was one of those type of friendships. I mean, I was over at his house all the time. If I wasn't there, we were over at another buddy, Wolfgang, German kid down the street, and we caused a lot of mischief. A lot of mischief. Let's see.
So I'll stop you right there since you're pausing for a second. So, and I've said this a lot, and this is what a lot of people don't really get. So when a lot of our listeners here in Winter's Edge, unless they've been in the game for quite a while, they may not know who you are because it's been a while since you've come to events and things. But
Right.
I mean, let's face it, you were one of the cool kids here in Amtgard. Absolutely one of the cool kids. And
Ironically.
and obviously Kelbo was definitely one of the cool kids. But what people just don't get, it doesn't matter how cool you are or were in Amtgard, there's a good chance that you weren't when you were in high school. Amtgard
Right.
is full of the what's the old Rudolph island that all the toys.
Misfits.
Yeah, the misfit toys. I mean, that's literally what Amtgard's filled
Right.
with. So if you're in Amtgard and you're having a hard time coping with groups of people and stuff, just remember the whole Amtgard's filled with misfit toys. So you're not alone, and it's okay. It's absolutely okay to be a misfit toy. We
Oh yeah.
we
Oh,
welcome
yeah.
all of you. So I think it's awesome. And I got one follow-up question, though. I wanted to make that point so that if anyone out there was struggling with it, they understand it's okay to be a misfit.
By all means.
But my question I have for you, Tony, and this has been mentioned 100 times on this podcast, which, here's the thing, you're going to be the first person because it makes sense because you knew him the longest. You were the first one to know him from our Amtgard setting. So right. They haven't heard all this yet, but you're gonna hear lots of people talking about how jovial and how he totally makes everyone around him, brings everyone around him into his bubble, and talk directly with him, and basically makes everyone around him feel welcomed and warmed. Was he always like that? Like you mentioned that he was always the guy that sat in the corner away from the crowd of people. He's not like that in Amtgard. No one in a million years would say that about him in Amtgard. When did he start breaking out of that shell? Since you've known him the longest, when did you start see him breaking out of that shell?
I want to say once he got out of high school and went to college. I went into the Navy. He went into college. He got his scholarships and everything, and he went up to University of Florida. Big Gators, so he's always been a big fan, and it's always going to be in his heart. He loved his college. But yeah, so every chance that I got, I would go up there to Gainesville, and I just had a little 4-banger car that apparently was running on 3 cylinders instead of 4, but I found out that you can go 85, 90 miles an hour with 3 cylinders. But I got up there every chance I can. He introduced me to like beer pong, which if anybody's ever played with him, just don't.
No, I'm not gonna ever. There's no way I would play any beer game with Kelbo. There's no way.
Right. Beer pong. Let's see. Quarters. Yeah. Everybody's learned. I mean, that man can drop a quarter in a shot glass on a floating table in the middle of a jacuzzi filled with people.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I just don't doubt it.
If that ain't the craziest shit I ever saw, he just some talent right there.
And the thing is, he probably, it's probably just because beer's on the line. Like if beer wasn't on the line, he probably would suck at it. Right. But because beer's on the line, it's his fucking superpower.
Yes, sir. Okay, so while he's in college, he's going back and forth. I got out of the Navy. I wasn't a good boy, so me and the Navy didn't work out. So I got back and started my glorious career as every low wage paying job I could get, and run into people at a local bookstore, little small mom and pop store. Just got into Magic, if anybody remembers that old card game, and met a bunch of people there. Well, after a year or two, met a guy named Jim and Chris Gibson, Golwyn, or Sir Golwyn, as a lot of people know him.
Yeah, he'll be our next interview.
Yeah, he already had experience in Amtgard, and so did Jim. So they all agreed to grab whoever they could and, see if we can start a group. So we did. Had such a great time with it, I had to get Tony into it. Had to. I can't do anything without my brother.
Right.
And he got into it, and he absolutely loved it too. He wasn't the greatest, but he didn't care. You know, it wasn't about, you know, being the best. He just had a great time. And as time went, you know, Falling Fire was formed, and we, we started meeting over at Tony's house, me, Golwyn, and Kelbo. And we started putting everything that we had on paper, sign-in sheets, awards, stuff like that, we started putting in Microsoft Excel, which took us forever. But we got it set up. It feels like the Stone Age of computers. Everything on a floppy disk. And that really solidified Kelbo into Amtgard, because now he was personally invested and seeing it through.
Yeah.
And once he graduated high school and started his job, I think he's been with Verizon forever.
You mean once he graduated college?
Yeah, once he graduated college, yeah, I think he's been with Verizon, since then.
Yeah, he's I think he was at the time that everything happened, he was on his when I talked to him at his 90, he was telling me that he was being laid off with the whole mass laying off of all the Verizon people in his area, and they were giving him a some nice walking papers. So he was just biding his time for them to for his time to run out, because they were like, at the end of this time we're going to lay you off, and these are your walking papers. So he was actually pretty excited, because like they gave him like really nice walking papers. Because,
right.
I mean, it makes sense, because I mean the guy was ahead of like 3 or 4, departments, projects, and it was just ridiculous what they put on his shoulders.
Watching Kelbo leave a party because he's got to go work. He's got to go save Verizon's screw up.
Yeah.
And it happened. And it happened frequently enough where, they should have kissed his ass.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, and I think they did in a lot of ways. Talking to him about it, because I had those same suggestions to him. I'm like, why the hell are you still with that company? Right. He's like, well, they pay me good, and I pretty much do whatever I want. I'm like, okay, that's fair then. I get it.
Yeah,
but
that's one of the things that I can say. Like myself, Kelbo is definitely somebody, when he gives his loyalty to somebody, it doesn't go away. He was one of those generally good guys.
Yep.
You make a friend with him, and it's friends for life.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's hard not to love the guy, right? I mean, he's jovial and charismatic, and but I mean, he's a misfit toy. So you could relate to him on so many levels because of his jovialness and his charisma, but on the other side, he's not afraid to show you that he's a misfit toy. He's not afraid to show you that he's one of you, just because he's, a knight, or, the king of Neverwinter, or whatever position he might be in. He's still one of you, and people related to him so well because of that. It was it was crazy. I mean, I felt like he was on a tier above me, but he definitely made it feel like a knight-squire relationship. And I told him from the very start, I was like, look, I'm giving you this belt there's probably zero I can teach you, but I'm giving you the spell out of respect because I think you deserve. And he was like, no, there's lots you could teach me. And I'm like, oh, that's so adorable that you're giving me that much credit. No, you're smarter than I am. Way smarter than I am.
I mean, he's definitely a real smart man. A lot of people go to him for advice. They don't go to me so much for advice. Unless they're trying to screw something
it's
up.
A lot, asshole. I've got the title of Archduke instead of Grand Duke because of your ass.
Oops.
Fucker. Oh, what else? I think you told Tree. Oh yeah, well, give him another gold. No, I'm not gonna run for king again just to get my Grand Duke. No, it's not happening. I worked my ass off during that term of king. But let me rephrase. Actually, me and Kelbo worked our ass off during my term as king. Yeah, I couldn't have done my term of king as without Kelbo. I mean, he was my ride or die, and we just, right. Yeah, man. I mean, he was. I mean, it was just him. I'm lost for words because I mean, he worked. He was a workhorse during my term. I didn't think that there was anyone that could keep up with me. I was arrogant enough to think that there was no one that could keep up with me when I was doing my term of office, and he was right beside me the whole time. And I mean, he was amazing. There's no way I could have pulled off the grandiose ideas that I had as monarch without him. There's just no way.
That was one of the great things about him, and this is one of the things that really kept me and Tony just together. There wasn't a such thing as no, you can't.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because that's true. Because I would be like, man, I have this idea, but I just don't know how to implement it. And we would, between the two of us, dude, we would brainstorm and just, oh my God, man.
I mean,
made it happen.
It's real easy to get him to. He'll draw out people's creativity to think outside the box.
Yep.
I mean,
he was good by doing good at that for sure.
Yeah, but that was one of the things that really we caused a lot of mischief. The cops probably still have our 3-man sling. We used to hop fences over at the school, play football. I mean, you couldn't tell us no. You can't do that. We would find a way of doing what we wanted to do.
And I would like to make a comment here to the family of Tony. If you listen to this podcast and you're hearing this, he's making it all up. Tony did not do any of those things. He was a sweetheart. He would never ever do any of those things that wouldn't make you proud. I'm just saying. I just had to throw that in there. Sorry.
Oh no, they've adopted me, so they know better. His dad nicknamed me Trouble a long time ago. I just walk in the house, it's like, hey, Trouble.
Sounds like he knew you a little better than yeah.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of the reasons why Tony's relatable, and he don't share a lot. He's always been tight-lipped about himself, and there's a few people that he's opened up with, and if you were one of those lucky people that he's opened up to, count your stars. You got a piece of him that a lot of people don't.
Well, I think, and I mentioned this. All right, so a little bit behind the curtain for our listeners. We recorded everybody separately, and when we could, based on their schedule. So a lot of our recordings have what we've already done, but Cho's recording will be the first recording on the podcast. So I say that just to let you know that the next one is going to be Sir Golwyn, since he was the next in line, and it just makes sense in Tony's history.
Right.
With that being said, I mentioned something on his podcast that, or on his recording, that follows up with what you're saying. It's not necessarily that I think he's just, I think he's very humble, right? Like when he's telling a story, he doesn't mind telling you the stories where he's the center of attention and he does something funny. But when it comes to his accolades and things like that, he's very humble about those things. He's very, he won't. And then, of course, like you said, anything bad, he won't talk about either. Unless you're a part of his inner circle, he doesn't. And I could probably think of like 4 people in Amtgard that he really seriously had those conversations with.
Right.
So yeah, I get what you're saying, and for our listeners out there, he never would brag on himself about the important things. He would brag on himself when it comes to dick and fart jokes, but I mean,
but yeah, I mean, the point that I was trying to let our audience know was that Kelbo has gone through a lot of his own traumas.
Yeah.
And he doesn't share that with people, but he understands. And he doesn't judge people based on, their past or anything like that. If you're reaching out for help, he's going to help you. He don't care what you did in the past. He didn't care about all the other stuff. He could tell, and he would. And that's one of the things that I love about him. There was not a time that I could ever remember where I didn't say, "Hey, Tony, I need you," and he wasn't there for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he would drop everything he could. And he did. And then, of course, one of the times he actually saved my life, sort of. Kind of weird how that happened.
You can't just gloss over that. So go ahead and tell us that story.
No. It's an interesting story, and I know his parents will laugh because they'll remember. There was one of the nights I was in training over in Orlando while I was in the Navy, and I got some furlough, so I come back, and the first person I go to see is Kelbo. Well, I'm beating on the front door. Nobody's answering. Now, I should know better, but there was a lot of ducks not given. So I went around back and beat on their sliding glass door, trying to get somebody's attention. Well, the whole family's in the living room, and nobody's supposed to be in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So the curtain moves, and I'm looking down the barrel of a gun.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you would think Tony would say, "Dad, it's Ray. Don't shoot him." Not my boy. He's like, "No, go. It's Ray. Go ahead, shoot him. Shoot him." And then he had to go, no, Dad, really don't.
There's that moment of contemplation.
Right. Oh, I'm sure that had they had a camera available, my face would have been priceless.
So what Dad probably never told you is that in his mind he was going, okay, he's the reason why Kelbo jumped the fence. He's the reason why he played with the three-man.
Three-man thing.
Yeah, he's the reason that He's there. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Kelbo said, or Tony said not to shoot him. Not really.
Right.
Okay. Dang. All right. That's what was
Yeah.
probably happening in Dad's head.
Right.
So,
But now, this was something that I wanted to bring up. Just a couple of interesting facts about Tony. I don't know how many people know, but Tony's actually a twin. It's not something that he advertises, but yes, he has a twin sister.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yep. Her name is Denise, and she's a wonderful person.
And she doesn't live around here, right? Or well, I say around here. I mean around where Tony was living.
No, she's now married and living with her husband. I forget which state because I think she's been through a couple. But honestly, two opposites you probably couldn't find more like each other. I mean, they really, you could have stood them right next to each other and you would have never guessed. But Denise is a sweetheart that Tony absolutely loved to torture. And what I mean by torture, he wasn't evil or anything like that. He would sit next to her, put his arm on hers, all loving-like, and sit there and tap her arm for the next 2-3 hours.
Yeah, Chinese water torture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this was kind of something that I was a little jealous about because my family lacked a lot of, I guess, close affection.
Right, because
because
the Chinese water torture is definitely loving affection. You're right. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, because he didn't do it with his sister, he did it with his dad, he did it with his mom,
Yeah, that sounds
and
about
just
right.
watching them, they just don't stop it. They just let it go on, and he knows it bothers them, and occasionally they'll say something, but it doesn't faze him any. But yeah, being a twin probably never really affected him.
I'll tell you one thing that I've learned from your stories, Cho, and I don't know why I didn't put this together before. I knew that Tony had been one of the kids that sat on the same side of the lunchroom that I did, that all of us did.
Right.
But your story earlier really brought something to the forefront for me that the listeners are going to hear in some of the later stories that other people tell. And I want to point out that none of these people talk to each other ahead of time. None of this was coordinated. You're just getting a snapshot of who the guy really, really was. And that is that he was that quiet kid who sat over in the corner by himself that, very likely, I think you had said, not many people reach out to him or anything like that. And as an adult, now that story was when he was very young. As an adult, he was the guy that reached out to all of those people. He recognized who that person was because he had been that person and would reach out to them and make sure that they knew that somebody was there. Somebody was interested in talking to them, hearing what they had to say, seeing what good ideas they had, helping them work through whatever challenges they were going through. And I think that that's really cool and something that should not be forgotten.
Oh, no. It's a lesson that I'll never forget.
Yeah, and if mom and dad are listening, just know that your son touched hundreds of lives, and every single one of them will always remember him because of the impact that he had on their lives. And I already know that you're proud of him, but I hope this gives you some comfort because he has made a difference in so many lives. And I know he's made a difference in mine, but you're going to hear so many stories how many lives that he's touched and helped. And that's the thing. I mean, he just helped so many people through their own demons. I mean, just straight up. I mean, your son is an amazing man. I loved him. Ray loved him. Everyone on this podcast that you're going to hear absolutely loves him. And we could probably, if we asked for volunteers to do this show, we would still be filming till, 2035 or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. It should be pretty easy to fill in that kind of time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, here's one that really stands out. Stories on Kelbo. He's definitely a silly man. If anybody's really hung out with him, we tried doing a party. I want to say it was a birthday party for Stinkfoot. Went over to his girlfriend's house to do a party over there, and we were a pretty wild bunch. At some point in time, I look out on the patio, and Kelbo's sitting in a lawn chair, got his feet propped up on the back of another chair, and it's tied to the top of his feet are tied to the top of the chair. Well, I'm looking out there, and somebody had stuck a cigarette in his toes. And you can see the man reaching out to his legs, trying to reach it, and blowing on it, going, "Help!" I about cried laughing because I couldn't get to him in time. I forget who did get to him in time because there was a lot of stuff in the way. But he was just out there on the patio all by himself, so I don't even know who stuck the damn cigarette in his foot. But that's kind of the silly stuff I expect out of a man.
So, what is your favorite memory with Kelbo?
Oh my lord! My favorite would have to be our beach trips. We would get a bunch of our friends, cram into a car, and we would go to either Clearwater Beach or Daytona or wherever we felt like. And we had one of our favorite songs while we were driving down to the beach. We would have 6 or 7 people sticking their heads out of the window, half their bodies, screaming and singing AC/DC's song "Big Balls." If you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend that you listen.
I've got big balls. You've got big balls.
Yeah.
Everybody's got big balls.
But we've got the biggest balls of them all.
Yep.
But my favorite ones on the beach trips was me and Kelbo going by ourselves. I had long hair. Tony had short hair. If anybody could imagine that.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever known him without long hair. I think I've known him. The only time I've known him is he's had long hair. So, no, I can't imagine that.
Right. So we would go down there. We would be in jeans and our heavy metal band shirts or hard rock shirts, and
yeah. See, that's another thing that I can't imagine him in anything other than a skeleton or some kind of death or some kind of evil scythe-looking evil thing with a scythe or something along that line. I can't imagine him wearing it. Like, to the point I was thinking about buying one of those T-shirts with something like that on it and then making a slough coat out of it, because he would wear that shirt with a slough coat, and that was his garb because he wanted that on his chest. And I'm like, I should make a slough coat with that. Just cut it out of a shirt and then sew it to a slough coat. So
Right.
yeah, I was eventually going to do that. I still may do that. I might make that for myself actually, and wear it in his honor.
But we would stride, and we would probably take the longest route to get to where we wanted to through the most amount of people, because we absolutely loved shock value. So we would have our boombox carrying our shoulder.
That's kind of what all of us comedians do, right? It's all about the shock value of our jokes.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. So we would have our bags carrying, got the boombox going, and we'd do the little heavy metal hand signals while we're listening to Beethoven or Mozart. Oh my God, the looks we would get from people. Oh, it was crazy. It was hilarious.
That's good stuff.
So those were my favorite moments. A lot of there's so many that I couldn't even count, because there were just little things that we would do. Go to a restaurant and we would read the menus upside down and backwards and look at the server with our eyes crossed and order. Or see a 7-Eleven and just impulsively scream, "Slurpee!" and then pull over and get a Slurpee. I mean, so, I'll always have those memories to carry me through, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think of them.
You got that right, brother.
And honestly, there's some days that are harder than others. But, stuff like this will help people that he's touched in their life, or in his life, that he's reached out and touched and made a difference in. It'll help him get through.
Yeah. And the other thing that I want this to do too is not only that, and most importantly that, but also I don't want, or I want to be able to, when we're telling old stories around the campfire at Amtgard, I want, when we tell those stories specifically, excuse me, I'm sorry. Getting a little choked up. When we're telling those stories about Kelbo, and I want to be able to go, yeah, man, let me tell you about my friend, and if you want to hear more about him and the great things that he's done to Amtgard, because he's left a legacy behind, and the one thing I don't want is for that legacy to be forgotten. And that's the whole idea of this, is to not only help those with their healing process and turn such a shitty day into a celebration of his life, because I know that's what he would want. So instead of taking this day and with turning that into a celebration of life, but also to educate those that didn't know him about the things that he did. So that's I love it. I want that, and I couldn't have done it without you guys being on here and all of his friends showing up and in number, obviously, and telling stories about him and how much you loved him, how much you appreciated his friendship and valued his friendship, and it was an honor to have you on the podcast today, Cho, and I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was a great honor, and I can't wait to hear the whole completed...
Oh, man, there's some pretty good interviews, dude. Yeah, I'm excited, too. I think we're going to try to do something different with the podcast, too, because the other two yahoos that are supposed to be the host of this show, I totally hijacked the show, and I'm holding Flo at gunpoint. So I mean, no, Mr. Police Officer, it's not at gunpoint. I'm just twisting his arm. I mean, damn, no, I'm not doing that either. I asked him nicely. Yeah, I asked him nicely to do this podcast with me. but the other two yahoos didn't really know Kelbo all that well. So I'm hoping to do something special with that, which if you're listening to the podcast, then it's probably all been explained already. So, yeah. So, anyway, I do appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.